Hi, my name is Liam Kelly and I'm a native of Achill. I'm standing here in a bog that we used to come to when I was a child, and it would hold many kind of happy memories of the day on the bog. When you get ready to come to the bog, it was nearly like a ritual. You know, the sandwiches had to be made, the tea was made, the drinks were made, and it was brought to the bog, the kettle, the tea, loose tea. And the first thing you done when you got to the bog, or one was delegated to do, was to light a small fire, and you put the kettle on the fire and proceeded to do, if you were cutting turf, spreading, footing, or whatever. And when lunchtime had come, then the tea was thrown into the boiling kettle, and you had your jam sandwiches and whatever with it, and it was like a big picnic. And it was a social event, because unlike nowadays, you'd have 7 or 8 people sitting around, and there was conversation, there was chat. You felt kind of normal in the sense of, like, it was like a family. It was like a family outing, really. Now the work might have been hard, but the fun and the crack was a lot better than the work. And you would have people on bogs beside you, where there was an interaction. Kids would be playing with one another on the bogs. Everything was safe, and it was a place where you felt there was something magical about it. But that childhood memory is there of, the day out, and the little bit of work that was involved, but it was more fun. So when I left Achill when I was 18, 19, and to work in England in the catering trade, and I managed restaurants and bars. And years later I returned, and I was taken to the bog by my father, and I still had the memory of the great times on the bog as a kid, but this seemed to be a bit more harsher. While I was on the bog, the chap next to me put a piece of bogwood into a car, and later I was talking to him, and I said, what was the guy going to do with the piece of bogwood? And he said, well, he's going to polish it up. So I said, well, really, anybody can do that. And he said, well, I don't think you could. So anyway, in my father's turf shed, then there was some pieces of wood and bogwood, and I started to play around with it a little bit, and I had no problem getting shapes. The only problem I had was the finishing of it, and I tried varnish, paint, you name it, I tried it. And I eventually settled with wax, and to me it looked, a piece of beauty, really. And I showed it to the gentleman anyway, and he was flabbergasted that I could actually even attempt it, never mind do it. And that was the start of my journey into sculpting bogwood. This here now is a piece of bogwood that I have found here on the bog, and more than likely it's a piece of yew. And if you think about it, this piece of wood was here in the bog before the first people came to Achill, which was probably around 5,000 years ago. So this piece of wood is actually older than any of that. And my hand is the first hand that's touched that in that space of time. It's a bit like life, a bog. It decays, it grows, it rejuvenates, and it's a living organism. I've just brought this piece out now from the gallery, and I'm going to finish it. I've done this piece here at the top already with beeswax, and this is a piece of yew, and hence it's got a kind of a reddy tint through it. And most of my work I do outside, really because of the dust factor. And this piece down here now is oak, and I'm going to use beeswax on this, and it'll bring out the natural grain of the wood. This piece here now is one of my favourite pieces. It's based on the story of the children of Lear. And the funny thing about this is that the actual wood that's in it is a couple of thousand years older than the actual story itself. I was teaching myself as I was going along, and it was like an invitation into my imagination, what I was actually doing. It was, my imagination was running riot with this bogwood. You know, the wood would actually be dictating to me the final outcome. And it felt as if my hands were just moving along with the wood without me having to really think too much about it. Carried on doing bits and pieces with it. Not really ever selling anything, just doing it for my own enjoyment. And I happened then to take part in an exhibition in Dublin that was an international exhibition, and I was approached by the guy that was organising, who was Tony Clark, and I put a piece in, and the reaction that I got from it was unreal. And it was then that I met a curator called Tony Strickland, who really put me on the map. I was surprised how people were actually taken to the bogwood. Eventually, I ended up doing an exhibition in Beirut, where I sent a couple of pieces out to a lady called Rula Krem, who's the director of the gallery. And I've done a couple of exhibitions in Italy with Roberto Fino, and it gathered its own momentum from there. There's an old saying that if you enjoy your work, you never work a day in your life. And I find that I'm very fortunate in the sense that I actually love what I'm doing. It doesn't feel like work, and I'm really happy that it can be part of my earning, that it helps me to actually live here on Achill.